the Guam Department of Education. I don't know if you do TikTok dances, John, but
we're going to send you the video, and we hope that you can record your version and send it back and show off your moves. And it's for a fun cause.
Yeah, good morning. I didn't get to see the video, so I'll have to watch it. But
well, WhatsApp it to you.
Yeah, we're going to spam your WhatsApp.
Yeah. I'll take a look at that for sure. See if I can do better than Chris.
Right. So what's going on with GDOE? Any updates?
Well, I want to encourage everyone who has an opportunity to tune in today to the Guam Department of Education Facebook page at 11 o'clock. The board is having a special meeting, and this is really, there won't be any final decisions made, at least my understanding at this point is no final decisions made. They're going to save that for their regular meeting on June 23rd. Okay. But they wanted to have a special meeting to make sure that they could discuss these matters in a public forum with all the members in attendance, and have the presentation made by our reopening task force to go through the issue that you probably already heard of in bits and pieces from me and from others regarding the potential for staggered schedules, looking at the safety issues that we're trying to deal with in opening facilities, getting an update on those preparations, really looking at the mental health side and then our plans to support our employees and students as they return to school. And just all of those matters that we've been in discussion, and we're kind of trying to nail down options and recommendations for the board. But this is really I guess, an early opportunity this month for them to get that presentation, identify issues and areas that they want us to think through more, offer suggestions, and then we hope and encourage the public to listen in as well. Obviously, they're welcome to put comments on our Facebook page as they watch, but also to send them in and to pay attention to the next upcoming opportunities to provide input. So the meeting's today at 11, and the final board meeting where we're asking the board to make a final decision on these recommendations will be on June 23rd at the regular board meeting as well, and that also will be live streamed.
Is there anywhere people can read this presentation, maybe even prior to this meeting at 11, so that when it goes live, they can actually have some meaningful discussion or comment and feedback?
Well, that's a good idea. I mean, we've been engaging a set of stakeholders, including representatives of island-wide parent-teacher organizations, and we will do so again. Okay. We've been hesitant to share, to just put out documents, widely without the opportunity to also be discussing them, because a lot of these, definitely it's in draft form, and a lot of these discussions are not yet final. And sometimes what happens is people run off with one of the options saying, oh, this is what's going to happen next year, and we spend 2 weeks trying to tell people that isn't the final decision. So we've been a little hesitant, but I think, maybe after this meeting where we actually are, kind of getting closer to the decision points, we can release some version of it so that the general public understands, at least the major decisions that have to be made. But up to this point, we have shared it, but, of course, being very careful to label them as draft working documents for discussion. And, I'm sure it's out there in the community as well. But it really has been a part of also being able to present it to make sure people have the proper context. And I think that's what we're trying to do by the regular discussions with you, other members of the media, is just walk everybody through the decision-making process. So when we get to the end, people kind of understand how these decisions came about. But I think that's a great suggestion to put something out there in writing more broadly.
Yeah, but I agree with you, John. It's like if you talk about, and we've seen it throughout this pandemic, where the governor or a doctor or anybody kind of in that position will discuss an idea, and then it becomes all of a sudden it's not even an idea anymore. People think it's an actual policy, and they kind of run away with it. So I can appreciate how careful you're being with what you're putting out.
And some of the things that I put out there, we do it very consciously, and part of it is almost like running test balloons. Let's float these ideas out there just to get people to think about them and get the input as well. So this last week we've been talking about the potential for staggered schedules and what that might mean for those students who have the varied levels of access to the internet versus those who don't, what it might mean for those families of siblings who go to different schools, and what happens if they have to alternate days and find childcare. Just try to think through all the impacts as we try to make those recommendations to the board. So even just mentioning staggered schedules, already I've been getting emails from parents. And
you should see our comments, yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely welcome them. Definitely welcome those comments. It's good for us to kind of understand where people's mindsets are, so that we can address those directly. So we do want to release at least discuss some of the major decision points that are out there, because it helps us to get that input.
Right. Yeah, and I only said that because if you guys are going public and actually going to do a presentation today, it just seems that it would be helpful for somebody, a parent who's following along, to have something to follow along.
Yeah.
So
I think that's right. That's right. I think at this point, because we were just preparing kind of for the board's discussion, either I don't know if we'll be able to do it before, but at least following, we can provide something that'll help people walk through some of the major decision points. I mean, there's lots of details, of course, but at least the major ones that are going to have the most impact. So we'll figure that out and how to get that out there. We still have some time.
Is there going to be a PowerPoint during this, or is just people going to be talking about it?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, yeah, that's
working
good.
on something that maybe that'll be the best way to do it. But no, absolutely, we're really, as I said, and as you understand, it's going to be a very different year ahead of us, especially with the public emergency still in place and the safety parameters still in place. There are some decisions that we just can't avoid, especially if you're talking about things like social distancing and what that looks like, in a school setting. Things that we just have to kind of confront directly and think through what the options are. Yeah. So definitely we'll put more information out.
It's like the heavy weather briefings, right? That the civil defense has, and so while the presentations are being made, they pop up the PowerPoint, and afterwards they release it. So. That's just the only reason why I brought that up, because it helps, at least on my end and the media's end. You can see it, and then you have the information, and so you can, for us at least, we could put out the most accurate information and about what the topic is.
Yeah, I'm sure we can put something out there. Maybe right after this meeting, we'll figure that out.
But in the meantime, we'll continue to promote the fact that you guys are having this meeting and encourage all parents to actually watch.
Yeah, and to let everyone know that as we go along, again, we are looking at coming to a final decision. I mean, these are you can imagine some of the feedback we get. It covers the entire breadth of the possible spectrum of opinions, right? So we have parents, you say things like staggered schedules, and the first parent will say, "I will never send my kid until there's a cure for the virus." And then the second comment will be, "How come they're not opening for all kids? I got to go back to work." And that continues to be the wide gap in terms of the different opinions we're getting. And I'm telling my team, we just have to navigate this as sensibly and as transparently, as deliberately as possible, because at the end of the day, we are going to still deal with parents on either side, and you can understand both sides have some valid points. So it's not. I think with the heavy weather briefings and typhoons, we're kind of used to how we respond to those emergencies. This one is really not just unprecedented, but it's really a challenge to work through. But I got a team that's really dedicated to trying to figure out this puzzle and do so in the best way to make it work, but also be very aware of the impact on people, like especially our parents and our families at home.
Is the Department of Education planning or anticipating an increase in student population? Because we've seen the lines. People are hurting now. We're seeing more people who are signing up for public assistance that normally wouldn't. Unemployment, 38,000, I think, was the estimated number. So there may be people that can't afford to pay for private school, and will send their children to public school. Are you guys planning for that?
Well, we just reopened, and the central office, and are going to be pushing for more, for regular activities to take place back at the schools, in terms of registration and so forth. So right now, I would say that we are receiving that type of anecdotal, types of evidence that we might see more enrollment because of folks who might be coming from the private schools into the public schools because of maybe an inability or the challenge making the tuition payments.
Mm-hmm.
So we are hearing some of that, but it'll really depend on what happens when it comes to registration and starting to get those numbers in to see whether that actually comes true this year. But yes, we are preparing for that possibility.
John, can we do a wrap on the commodities and how that effort went, and if there's going to be anything going on in the future with it again?
Yeah, so it's this is a strange area for of the department that we've been trying to deal with, in this particular time of emergency. So I would say that usually we do already provide commodities on a regular basis to those who are qualified by income, and those usually end up being our SNAP, WIC, our welfare program recipients who are eligible. And so that's a smaller subset of people who normally avail themselves of our food commodities. But since COVID-19 has hit, not only has there been more commodities coming into Guam as well as flexibilities, it's really forced us to kind of think through our role in food support. So we were very happy to be able to not only continue the school meals. So at this point, I think we've served about 275,000 breakfasts and lunches since the beginning of our government shutdown in March. And on top of that, I think we've distributed about 20,000 commodity bags through through the TSAP program.
Right.
That includes about 12,000 that we were giving out, up to this week, which was basically anybody who came in was able to be eligible to pick up a bag of commodities. That came under the disaster household distribution part of the program. And then we had an additional 8,000 bags that we pushed out through our partners, our nonprofit partners, and Feed the Need and so forth. So those are 20,000 bags of commodities that have already been pushed out. Our team told us that USDA is going to require us to revert back to our regular operation, not this coming week. This coming week we'll be, using that time to replenish the commodities. But the week after that, we are supposed to be reverting to the distribution down in PD under, basically back to the eligibility requirements under SNAP, WIC, and so forth. But recently, I've been in discussion with our office. There is a possibility that we can revise our state plan, in which we set that income eligibility. And if we raise that, if we're allowed to raise that income level and have it approved by USDA, we might be able to continue the broader distribution of commodities like we've done these past few weeks.
So how do you do that?
So meaning that, so we have to revise, so I believe we're under, our current rate is under 300% of poverty, but our team has discussed the possibility of moving it to about 400% of the poverty level, similar to some other states on the West Coast. And if USDA signs off on that, that'll get us back to a situation where we don't have to be as strict in our requirements for those who still need food support. So that's something I'm really looking at, because I understand there's a lot of people waiting for their unemployment benefits, and that's been taking some time. And until that extra relief comes in, I just suspect that the food support will continue to be needed.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the food support, the grab and go food distribution sites at the different schools, with this, the possibility that the public health emergency may be lifted on June 30th. We don't know what the governor's going to do, but say that it is. Will the grab and go distribution still continue?
So we'll have to take a look at exactly how that takes place. I mean, my understanding is that if we move into PCOR 3, that will still be under an emergency. It'll just be some of the conditions will change. And if so, that would still allow us to continue our meals. And our meals program right now is scheduled to go to July 31st.
Okay.
So it's a good point. But I think as long as we remain under some level of emergency, even if it's under a reduced level, then we will still be able to operate.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that there's a possibility that we could be moved into PCOR 3, but still have this public health emergency declaration
Right.
in place.
Right.
Yeah, right. My understanding of the whole P-Corps situation is that there's 4 different levels, and so I know that as she's moved along, there still has been an emergency in place. It's just some of the activities that have been prohibited are now, starting to steadily reopen and so forth. So we'll wait and we'll work with the governor's office. My hope is that we just continue to extend the support through July 31st. And I know the governor supports that because of the funding she was able to provide us to help offset the local share of that cost. So we're planning to continue that over the summer.
Right. We have a question here from one of our online viewers. Are you doing testing before school starts? We just don't want a widespread the pandemic problem.
So, no, we understand completely this desire to test everybody, right? Test everybody on island, test everybody in the school system. That hasn't really been a requirement for anybody on island to reopen, right? So I doubt that unless there's a sufficient supply of testing, I doubt that we'll have that supply and that we'll be able to be prioritized. So we'll discuss that with the governor's office. We have brought it up, but I think everything's kind of been dependent on the availability of tests, and then kind of prioritizing the different sections of the community as that supply is increased. So I can't say that all of our employees and students will be tested prior to opening, but we definitely are going to be following all the CDC guidelines relative to operating safely as much as possible. And I understand that people want 100% certainty, and I can't guarantee 100% certainty, but I definitely want to let everybody know that we have been, following day by day any of the updated guidance from the CDC, from our various, other school-related organizations, and also talking with our local public health and physicians advisory group to align our safety precautions.
I just wanted to switch subjects really quickly. We've been waiting for the Guam legislature to continue with the debate on the budget and the proposed budget for next fiscal year. Can you just provide us an update on the numbers and the financial status of the Guam Department of Education?
Right. So we were able to have a budget hearing a couple of weeks ago, and at that point, and I was able to inform the legislature that our budget, at least the cash that we were receiving based on our budget, that we were still on target, that we weren't being required to make any of the reductions or alter our budget, at least not at this point in time. So the cash has been coming in to support our operations, and that isn't always the case, but of course we worry about it in this particular time because of the revenue situation. But we have been receiving our cash to be able to continue the operations, and until further notice, we're hopeful that that will continue to be the case.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you wanted to get out before this meeting at 11?
Well, I think relative to the meeting at 11, I really do want people to start, your listeners and those who are able to listen online today. And again, when you send information, I'll be able to really read through it and understand the impact. What I've told our team is that, if we can finish the decision making as much as possible in June, it'll give us, 4 to 6 weeks. If we're still targeting mid-August, it'll give us 4 to 6 weeks to continue to work with the community to communicate and explain and clarify all those decisions so that our families can make the adjustments they need to prepare for the school year. The challenge is, of course, that many people, most people will not focus in on the start of the school year until you get closer to it. And I've told the team that, as we get closer to August, you're going to start to see households and families start to realize the impact of these changes on their lives. So, things that I worry about already, which is the staggered schedules. What does that mean for childcare? What does that mean for, parents who need to go to work? My biggest challenge here is, what does it mean for the quality of teaching and learning? We just had a discussion yesterday about really focusing on the equity issues that we know there are a lot of parents and households out there that we're not going to worry about. If they're going online and they have access to the internet and they're the ones who are calling the teachers all the time to make sure their kids are on track. Those guys will be fine. Those families will be fine. But we know that many of our kids don't come from those situations, and it's not for not necessarily anyone's fault. It's just parents are working. There may not be internet access and so forth, and we really need to think through the quality of education that those kids are going to receive, and that's going to be a real challenge for us, and it's going to require a real partnership with parents to figure out how to best to make sure that kids continue to learn at home. The home learning is not a day off. If we do end up doing staggered schedules, it's not a day off. It's not vacation. There's got to be a learning component in there. So one of our conversations right now is we have a group of great teachers who are now working on instructional coaching. Where they're working with their colleagues to improve the classroom instruction. But that was last year. So I said today that we have coaches, but a lot of this teaching is going on at home. So how do we transform that support so that we're supporting parents as well, because they're now going to be teachers this year, in addition to the classroom instruction that they're getting. So that's a really big piece of it that concerns me, because usually people don't think about these things until they say, oh, we got a couple of weeks to start the school. What are we doing? What's the schedule look like? And then we're going to get all the calls, and I really know that it's going to be important for our parents to really be informed and be good partners. And we have to help each other through this year.
All right. Well, thank you so much, John, to you and your team.
You're just bumming all the kids out, John, because they're hearing this competent superintendent, and they're probably thinking, we are going back to school.
Well,
we are going back. It's going to happen.
There's that, but I tell you, you've got kids who are listening, and I got a couple of them already. I got especially the seniors for next year, the rising seniors.
Right.
Yeah. We spent all this time together from pre-K to 11th grade, and now you're going to split us up. At least keep the seniors together. So we're already getting a lobbying group going on, and I appreciate that. And also, I got some questions from parents who are skeptical, parents who and that's great. I welcome that. I said, just give us your input. Let us think about it and struggle with it. Because it's not really about just us following the CDC guidelines, and it's not just about pushing equipment out or helping with internet access. There's a whole level of additional support and communication and partnership that's needed to make this work. We want our parents and our children to feel safe, not just be safe because we're following the guidelines letter by letter, but really when they walk into the school, understand that there is an attention. There's a culture of safety in place, and everyone's taking it seriously so that they can feel that level of assurance. And then when it comes to teaching and learning, we've got to open up the lines of communication and support to make sure that we're reaching all of our children. So big task ahead for the team, but we're working on it.
Right on, John.
Well, thanks again for everything you guys are doing. I mean, with just the grab and go, the emergency food distribution, and you guys have so much things that you guys are working on top of the fact that you guys are responsible for cultivating our future leaders. So thank you.
Yeah,
so much.
Well, I do want to say to all the families out there, we really are thinking through the effects on our community of this virus and of the economic impact, and we're really hoping that as an island we can come together and find a way out of this. So yes, we do want to be good partners in that. And then second, if any of our employees are listening to your show and are out there getting ready for the lunches or or are out there packing commodities, I just want all of our employees who I haven't been able to touch base with to let them know that we just really appreciate the work that they're doing, because they are critical responders during this crisis, and we definitely are blessed to have them on our team.
All right, John. Well, thank
Thanks,
you.
John.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Okay, wash your hands.
Will do.
Okay.
Again, if you're a parent or even a student